problem is that some of the existing providers are getting rate cuts from some of the managed care organizations of up to 50% or more. When I was sitting in the meeting last week with the Department of Health Services, I was hearing about cuts that were as high as 65, 75, and 85%. And certainly it would be very difficult for any provider to continue delivering a service with a cut that large. And in fact, we had representatives from our association, from Residential Services Association, as well as the Wisconsin Assisted Living Association, and a group called CAPOW, the Community Alliance of Providers of Wisconsin. And between all of the different groups that were sitting around the room, we understood that probably within just a few weeks that the providers there would be giving notices of discharge. That means that they were going to tell people that they could no longer serve them in their existing homes for 120 people. Right there, just with a few providers, about 8 providers in that room. And I'm aware that about 85 of those discharge notices have already been provided, and there may have been more. We did meet, as I said, with the Department of Federal Services. I think Rock Platel's going to talk a little bit about where things might be going with a potential federal lawsuit to address some of the rights issues involved. But that's kind of a backdrop here. This is the third advocacy forum that we've held. Between the other two, we've drawn about 300 people. And people are very concerned about the direction that things are going in. There were some other issues that were noted and I think are pretty basic to what's gone on in Wisconsin's Family Care program. This is not universal. I don't want to say that it is, but many of the managed care organizations actually exclude service providers from the care management teams. They're not taking advantage of the knowledge that they have of the people that they serve. The use of the functional screen itself has different levels of issues concerning it. They're used to set the per person per month rates, which I mentioned before. They're also being used in about half of the MCOs, or a little bit more, to set provider rates. And we heard, in fact, there's somebody here in the audience tonight that told me a story that I related to the Department of Health Services in our meeting last week, basically saying that they weren't using the assessment properly, that care managers were coming in and they were disregarding input from the family about what the person could really do. And that was recognized as a problem by the Department of Health Services Secretary, who basically said, well, if we're not getting it right at the front door, then it affects everything down the line, because that's how the provider rates are being set, that's how the managed care rates are being set. So, certainly assessment needs to be done properly. And then I have some issues with the kind of assessment that's being done for intellectual and developmental disabilities, and I'll get to that in a few minutes. In some cases, we were even seeing in some parts of the state, in the northwest part of the state primarily, that the functional screens were being done repeatedly in order to try to drive down the rates. Well, the problem with that strategy is that that actually hurts the MCO's funding itself. So I'm not sure why that was being done. Didn't make a lot of sense to me, but it's something we did see. Another concern that providers have is the fact that there are these evergreen or perpetual contracts which don't establish payment rates. There's no payments that the providers are guaranteed. In fact, payment rates can change maybe even 2 times in a month. And something we heard last week is actually the MCO payments are changing from month to month in some cases too, based on how they're being paid.